Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Agustin Tellez. I'm an orthopedic surgeon from Cozumel, a spine surgeon, and I'm going to tell you an amazing story about an amazing person that has made an incredible and miraculous recovery from a very tough accident. So, here we go.
Thank you, Dr. Tellez. Hi everyone. Thank you once again for listening to this amazing story that we're about to tell. We already did this story in Spanish, and we did have a lot of people wanting to know or hear the story in English, so here we are doing it again. Right now I'd like to present one of my best friends, David. David Bake was with me the day of the accident, and if it wasn't for David, I wouldn't be here today. David was the person that swam out there and rescued me, and was very challenging.
Hi, my name is Javier. Sal, can you tell us what happened that day?
Absolutely, Javier. Thank you for having me. A lot of us like to go to the other side of the island. We go to this place where a lot of people cannot go. You have to have a four-wheel drive. This is a little dirt road that takes you to Hanan or to Punta Moles. Anyway, I decided that day to go to the other side of the island and go for a swim. On my way, I was thinking, let me stop and grab a friend. I didn't want to go alone. So I stopped at my friend David's house. David agreed to come with me, and we headed out to our journey. The total drive on this dirt road, it's very rocky and sandy, takes usually about a 40-minute drive. I have a side-by-side CF Moto. It took us maybe about 30 minutes, 25 minutes to get there. When we got there, we seen a spectacular day. It was beautiful, sunny. The waves were probably between 3 and 4 foot high. We sat there and talked for a little bit and then decided to go for a swim. When we decided to go for a swim, of course, we would take the waves and ride them in and do a little body surfing. Dave had done a couple of them that actually took some good waves. I had taken a couple in myself. About maybe 15, 20 minutes into the water, I seen David heading back into the beach, back up to where my CF Moto was parked under this palapa. At that point, I looked back behind me and seen this wave coming in, probably a 4-foot wave. I decided to ride it in. When I took the wave flipped me over, brought me down underneath, and rolled me and hit my head pretty hard, well, very hard, on the sand. Once I hit my head on the sand, I seen a flashing light. Right away, I thought that I was knocked out. I tried to shake my head under the water, but I couldn't shake it off. And I noticed that I couldn't move. I couldn't move my hands or my arms while I was underwater. Right away, I thought, am I paralyzed? Wasn't yet sure, thought I was still knocked out. Thought I was maybe dreaming of it. I could not move. I finally, at one point, got to lift my head up out of the water, where I seen David already almost at shore. I could not move. My arms could not move, my legs could not move. My head went back under the water, and at that point is when I thought, well, I knew at that point that it was over for me because I had no movement whatsoever. I started talking to my mom, who's in heaven, and I started telling my mom that, Mom, I'm gonna be with you, I'm coming to see you. At that point, I got this feeling, sorry for choking up, but I got this feeling of peace, like I wasn't scared and I wasn't worried anymore. I was okay. I was okay with it. But some feeling said to me that it was all going to be okay. And that was the last thing I remember. I don't remember nothing from there. I had passed out on the water.
David, you have been Sal's friend for a long time. How did you come to be where the event happened? And how did you feel?
Yeah, so Sal cruises by my house all the time in his side-by-side. He always drives by and he's like, "Kwa kwa, come on, let's go." And I thought about not going, but I love going to the east side. It's like our favorite place out at the Palapa Beach. So, you know, I hopped in with Sal and we cruised over there. It's a rough ride, the last 25 minutes on the 4x4 road. And it's just another day at a beautiful deserted beach out in the middle of nowhere, which is what I love about this place. And we're out catching some waves and it's body surfing like we normally do. The waves weren't that big, even really. And I remember I was headed back to shore and I looked back and I saw Sal and he was floating face down in the water. And he was quite a ways away from me. And I was worried, but I thought maybe he was messing with me. But I started to kind of slowly move towards him. He was probably over 100 feet away from me. And then I saw some waves hit him and he rolled with the wave and I realized that something was wrong. And I started just going through the water as fast as I could. And it was pretty deep on me. It took me probably a minute to get to Sal. And I was so scared when I finally got to him because I realized something was really wrong. We were a long way from help. And when I rolled him over, I could tell as soon as I touched his arm that something was wrong. Like it felt lifeless, you know. And when I rolled Sal over, he was just looking up, like his eyes were open, his mouth was open, and I was sure he was dead. And I just started dragging him back to shore as fast as I could, and I was trying to keep his head out of the water because his mouth was open and his eyes were open, and the waves were crashing over him. I was doing everything I could to keep his head out of the water, and it was a long trip back to shore. Even we were a ways out, and it took probably a minute and a half. And when I got closer to shore, Sal still hadn't started breathing or moved his eyes or anything. And just out of desperation, I slapped him in the face twice, and I saw his mouth just move like that, and I knew he was breathing, and I was like, "Oh, thank God," you know. And so I took Sal and I tried to drag him out of the water, but the beach slopes up like this, and Sal was just the dead weight. Like there was no stiffness in your body at all. Like it was just, you were just like jello, you know. And I couldn't drag Sal far enough out of the water to keep the waves from kind of coming over him. And I got down on top of him and I was like, "Sal, what's wrong?" And he's like, "My neck's broken, Dave. I can't move anything." And and at that point, I realized we were in some real trouble, and I knew I couldn't move Sal much after that because of his neck. And I tried to get him up out of the water, but every 8th or 9th wave would still come and hit him in the face. And we were alone. There was no one. This beach we're just in the middle of nowhere. It's during quarantine even. Like there's just no hope for anybody to come. And I didn't know what to do. And Sal was begging me to roll you back out in the water. He didn't want to live, you know, as a quadriplegic. And I honestly thought about it, you know, because we're good friends, and I thought, you know, maybe that's what friends do for each other. And but I decided not to because, you know, what if it was something else, a pinched nerve, or I just needed to get Sal to the hospital so that he can find out what was really wrong, you know. And you know, I got Sal positioned as good as I could, but the waves would still kind of hit him and take his body out a little bit. And I knew I had to make a run for the cell phone, which was up the beach, and then I had to run up a hill and then up another hill. And I knew if I stood at the top of this little hill with my hand like this, I could get 1 bar of signal on my cell phone to call for help. And I just ran as fast as I could because I knew the waves at any moment could just take Sal away, and I couldn't see him because he was so far away on the beach. And I was so scared, and I called his wife Bonita and told her, you know, bring everybody, get help. I ran back, I got some things to make a pillow for Sal's head. And I started digging like a big trench out in front of him so the waves would go into the trench first instead of coming up on his body. And I made one more phone call. I ran up and called my wife too, because we had a 4x4, and it was an old broken 4x4. We weren't even driving anymore because it was just not running right. But we didn't know anyone else that could maybe get a paramedic out, and she was going to get help. And I ran back to Sal, and I just sat with him for just over an hour, just waiting for help to come, and trying to keep him cool, and sitting in the sun so that it would cast shade on his body. And I sat with him. It was a long hour, just with my friend with his broken neck, and I was really scared. And eventually help came. My wife and Bonita, Sal's wife, and a friend of ours, and a paramedic. And with a lot of work, we were able to load Sal onto this little tiny stretcher they brought, and get you into our old broken 4x4 for the absolute hottest, worst 40-minute ride back to the highway to get to where the ambulance was. The truck broke the power steering. We had, it was just so hot, and everyone was trying to keep you braced in there. I know that was a long ride for you too. And I've never been so happy to get back to pavement, where we saw the ambulance and the National Guard there. And I knew my part of that adventure was over for now.
The odd thing that was for me. Okay. The odd thing that was for me is that I remember everything. Like, I remember the minute that he woke me up, the minute that I opened my eyes. I remember right away, the first thing that I told him is, my neck is broken and I'm paralyzed, and you put me back in that water because I don't want to live. Why do I want to live paralyzed, So I really was very upset at him at that moment, that I wanted him not to rescue me and put me back in the water. And the words of encouragement that stood in my head was, Sal, you never know, why don't you give it a chance? Don't give up right now. Just let's see what the problem is. Then you can always make a decision later of what you want to do with your life. And that gave me some encouragement. But it's amazing how I remember pretty much everything. I remember the ride. I remember getting into the ambulance. I remember getting into the hospital. And I remember, I believe it was Dr. Tellez. I am not exactly sure, but I remember that they asked me my name. Do you know what happened to you? And I clearly told them, and I knew exactly what had happened to me. From there, Dr. Tellez performed an amazing operation, surgery. I had my C3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm looking over right now at my doctor to make sure that I'm correct. But I had C3, 4, 5, and 6 shattered, and Dr. Tellez had to make a quick decision. Being on an island to where we don't have a lot of equipment, and we don't have really the staff for an injury like mine, Dr. Tellez really was the only person on the island who could perform this kind of surgery. But because they didn't have all the equipment, it took an extra day and a half. So I laid in the hospital for over 48 hours waiting for surgery. My chances of survival was about 20 to 30%. Normally, an injury like mine has a high probability of not surviving it. Anyway, through the operation, I remember waking up in the ICU. In the ICU is where I started more and more meeting Dr. Tellez. He would come and see me every day, giving me inspiration and hope. Waking up, I still was very, well, I was on drugs, so I don't remember too much of it. But I remember seeing my kids, and that's where I started getting hope. I believe my will and my hope started because of my kids and my friends. Dr. Tellez, of course, giving me hope and inspiration also. It took me a while to get out of ICU. I had a pneumonia in my lung, and then right after my ammonia, I got an infection in my lung. My lung turned completely white and actually really collapsed. So I kept fighting obstacles, and you know, your brain starts working and putting negative thoughts in my brain. Did not know if I was gonna live or die. Again, my percentages of survival were very, very low, me getting through ICU. But something kept me going, and I believe the number one thing later was my higher power, my God is more powerful than anything. And I started thinking that I've gone through all these obstacles and I'm still alive. Why am I still alive? Why is God keeping me alive? And I believe that there was a reason that I was still living and fighting for my life. At that point, gave me a lot of hope and inspiration and the will to want to live. And I remember telling a few people, and I don't know if I told Dr. Tellez this, but I remember telling people, you know, it's already written. It is already written in the books of the universe that I am going to survive this and that I am going to beat this. With all my friends on Facebook, with all the friends that I have here on the island, sending their prayers and their energy, I believe that helped a lot too, because I could actually feel at night the energy coming from all these prayers from thousands of people on the internet, excuse me, that were praying for me. And of course, my children. But what gave me a lot of hope, like I said, what gave me hope and inspiration was the will to live, was that I want to know the reason why I am still here today. Dr. Tellez, at that point, had told my children that I was a full quadriplegic, that my chance of movement or regaining any movement was about 1% to 2%. And in my mind, I thought, well, gee, okay, I have a percentage or two to move, you know? And so I wouldn't give up, you know, I just didn't give up. With Dr. Tellez's performance on giving me the right medication, I started moving my foot, started moving my hand. Little by little, I've got more movement. I can sit now on my core. I can sit up pretty good. I have an amazing physical therapist. His name is Milo. And I also have a respiratory therapist. His name is Victor Calderon. Between the both of them, giving me physical therapy every single day, 6 days a week, has really, I've really gained a lot of movement and a lot of, well, as I talk now, I could talk a lot better. And so there's definitely been a lot of gain in my, a lot of progress, I should say, in my recovery.
Doctor, can you tell us about the medical part?
Sure. Well, as you can see, Sal's story is amazing. Why is it amazing? Because on the medical field, this is very unique. What happened to Sal was a very tough accident. He had a medullary lesion at the level of C3, C4, and C5, C6. So he had trouble breathing afterwards. He was on a tracheotomy and with a laryngeal tube for over 60 days. So for him to recover from that was very tough. When we saw him in the emergency room, he was totally quadriplegic. He was a Frankel A, ASIA A degree lesion. That means that he couldn't feel or move anything from the neck down. So in that position, it was a very tough call to go on and give the treatment. But we did the surgery, and we did stabilize his cervical spine. It was a tough surgery because we are on a place where resources are limited. Also, the human resources. But Sal, with his will, power, and his energy from his mind and spirit, he made it through. All these 60 days were very tough. He had pneumonia twice, once from the ICU unit, the other from the machine that he was using to breathe, which are very common pneumonias in patients that are breathing through machines. We are in a pandemic, so this was a COVID case that had to be solved without getting COVID into Sal in a COVID situation. So we made it through without this complication. So that was part of the miracle too. Now Sal, one day, he started having trouble breathing because of the tubes in his trach. We tried using some steroids on him, and the next day was when we found that he started to move some of his limbs. So we did a very tough steroid course, and he did have great improvement. Afterwards, we went into a discussion with the other physicians about removing his tracheotomy and the tubes, because they wanted to wait a little bit longer for that to stay. But we took a chance with Sal and removed all the tubes. Now Sal is able to breathe and talk by himself. He is moving his hand, his feet, and we are very surprised because he has been through a very tough moment, and he's almost getting the full recovery. And we're sure that in a couple of months, Sal will be able to sit and talk and walk. God, meaningly, this is God's work. We were only the physicians in the middle of it. So I think this really happens because we have a good soul right beside me, and positive energy from everybody was getting into him. And I'm very happy that he's recovering. And we'll see in the future, we'll make another interview when he walks and he can do more stuff about this. I would like to thank Sal for giving me the opportunity to be part of his story. And I hope I can be a part of other people that need in their story too. Thank you.
Dr. Tellez, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only for the encouraging words that you would give me at the hospital and the inspiration, and to tell me it's only mind over matter, and all the little innuendos that you would say to me, and the little things that would make me laugh, because that helped me a lot. But for really going against what other doctors would say, and you were thinking outside the box when everybody else was going by the book. Going by the book, I'd have still been in the hospital. I'd have still have a trach in my throat, because they wanted to go from, I was at, my trach was a 7, and they wanted me to go all the way down to a 3 before they would remove it. Also, when I was breathing from the machine, where you would come in and encourage me with the CTAP to keep going, to not worry. And you, one thing that stuck in my head, and you said, Sal, it's not, remember, you could be tired physically, but maybe you're not tired from breathing. I want you to know the difference. And that there made the difference of me being able to breathe longer with the CTAP, with the CPAP. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, CPAP.
And that gave me the hope that I was breathing more and more on my own. When it came time to where I knew that I needed to come off this machine, because some of the other doctors were saying that there could be a possibility that I never come off the machine. At that point, there was no way. In my head, I said, there is no way, it is no way that I am going to live the rest of my life with some machine hooked up to my mouth. It's not possible. At that point, I made up my mind. My sister happened to be there. And I said to my sister, Josie, and my wife being my witness, I said, Josie, within the next 10 days, I will be off this machine. She goes, within the next 10? I said, Josie, mark my words right now. In the next 10 days, I will be off this machine. And on the 10th day, I was off the machine. I had help with the oxygen, but I was off the machine. The next big thing that Dr. Tellez did was to make the call for my trach. Remember that my trach was bothering me at the time really, really bad. They didn't want to take it out because once you take it out, if I can't breathe, you're in trouble. So Dr. Tellez made a decision to get with another physician and ask some questions. Say, I've got a gentleman here who's super strong. He's got the will. He's willing to try to take the trach out and go for it. Another doctor said, no way, you cannot do that. Thank you for thinking outside that box. And Dr. Tellez came to me that day and said to me, Sal, the decision is yours. We can take this trach out right now, or you can leave it in and just ride it out and go step by step in removing the trach and go slowly bringing the size of it down. And I said, Doc, let me ask you, what is the worst case scenario if I take this trach out today? He said, well, if you stop breathing, we could put one right back in. I said, then what are we waiting for? Take the trach out. They thought that if by taking the trach out, I would not be able to breathe through my nose. The minute he took it out, not only was I able to breathe through my nose, but I was able to breathe fine and started to talk. And at that point is where I told Dr. Tellez, thank you for helping me through these tough times. It was that trach being out of my mouth and knowing that I did not need a machine to help me breathe gave me even more inspiration and more will to live.
Sal, do you want to send a message to your friends and the people following your story?
Absolutely, Javier. You know, I know that there's a lot of people out there right now that have problems, and especially right now these days with COVID. I know that there's families out there that maybe their grandmoms or their grandpa, their dad, moms, dads, whatever, might be even fighting COVID. Whatever problem it is in life, remember that there's always hope. There's always hope for something better. I tell my children that a lot of times it's just a cloud. It's this cloud that comes by and it pours and it rains on us. And that cloud comes back, goes by, and sunshine will happen again. And that's what I want to let the public know, the people, the viewers, but especially my friends and family, is that there's always hope. Don't ever give up. There's no such word for me as no, and there's no such word for me as I can't. There's no way. My friends call me a rhino, and they call me a rhino for a reason, is that I don't give up and for nothing. I just keep charging forward. And that's the message I want to leave everybody is, don't give up. There's hope. Steve Hawkins, I believe was Steve Hawkins, he said, where there's life, there's hope. If you're alive, there's hope. Don't give up. And if you're ready to give up, if you're listening to me and you're having a bad day or having a bad time, look, right now, if I had to scratch my nose, I can't scratch it right now. But I'll guarantee you the next time we have this interview, I will show you how I scratch my nose, because I have that will and that power. And that's what I want to share with everyone out there. Thank you for listening.